Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am thrilled and honored today to urge your support of House Bill 3235, the Oregon Kids Credit. This bill represents an incredible opportunity to give tax money back to Oregon households and to support Oregon kids and their families. House Bill 3235 would create the Oregon Child Tax Credit, which would provide a refundable tax credit of $1,000 per child per year for those kids that are age 5 and under. This is for Oregon families making $25,000 or less per year. This credit would scale down for families that make between $25,000 and $30,000 a year, directly aligned with a poverty line for a family of 4. Colleagues, by passing this legislation, we can help an estimated 55,000 Oregon children by helping families with their basic needs, including food, housing, childcare, transportation, health care, education, and more. Every Oregon child deserves the best possible shot at a bright and healthy future, and this bill will make a significant step in the right direction. I'm a proud chief co-sponsor of this bill, along with Representative Valderrama, Representative Smith, Representative Graber, and Senator Campos. We enjoy bicameral and bipartisan support. In fact, this bill passed unanimously out of both the House Early Childhood and Human Services Committee and the Joint Committee on Tax Expenditures. I want to give you a little bit of context about why this policy is so important. I spent 8 years training to become a pediatrician, 4 years in medical school, and 4 years of pediatric residency. I spent a huge chunk of time learning the nuances of the physical exam, how to read x-rays, and what constitutes a normal blood count. But truly, this is not health care as much as it is sick care, learning how to help folks who are ill, and mostly in pediatrics, we're fortunate. It just takes time to heal and to recover. But when we talk about the actual health of a person, we don't really call on Pathology 101. We must focus laser beamed on the social determinants of health. We must acknowledge that one's health is utterly dependent on one's social environment, especially for children. So what are the social determinants of health? I think you all have probably heard these before. Tangibles like housing and food, access to quality childcare and health care, and meaningful education and rewarding careers. We need clean water and air. And then there's the intangibles, a sense of belonging to a community and factors that mitigate structural racism. It's clear that several of these components, these aspirations, are utterly informed by one's socioeconomic status and one's ability to have a home, to have enough food for one's family. And these things are consistently disrupted by poverty, because it's poverty and the toxic stress that poverty brings that is the common thread through so many poor health outcomes. The toxic stress of poverty interferes with the vital relationship between parent and baby, and children are particularly vulnerable to the consequences of poverty, which can lead to houselessness, hunger, disruptions in physical and cognitive growth, and in mental health. Impoverished Oregonians, we know, are overrepresented in our incarcerated population. And we also know that poverty contributes to higher infant and maternal mortality rates and lower expected lifespans. Children who experience poverty are much more likely to become impoverished adults, reflecting a cycle that is very difficult to interrupt. But there's some good news. It was recently reported that the U.S. has seen a marked decline in child poverty, a 60% drop in the last 30 years. It's not rocket science. The federal government reduced child poverty by augmenting some existing programs and giving money back to American taxpayers. The U.S. saw remarkable progress again during the pandemic when the federal government increased the child tax credit by 80% and allocated much of it through monthly checks to families. This reduced child poverty, albeit temporarily, by another 50%. We saw that giving money back to these taxpayers was one of the most effective things we could do. And unfortunately, these enhancements to the federal child tax credit have expired, but its success was the impetus for the bill you have before you today. In fact, one provision of this bill will require the Department of Revenue to establish a system for making quarterly payments to taxpayers who receive this credit rather than just the usual lump sum annually. This will help families budget throughout the entire year, following in the model of the federal credit. Furthermore, the money given back in this tax credit will not be subject to garnishment, ensuring that it's able to be spent on the very basic necessities for our families. In Oregon, 15% of children still live in poverty. This is defined as a family of four making less than $28,000 per year, 134,000 kids, disproportionately children who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. These kids are at a higher risk of hunger, developmental delays, socio-emotional learning deficits, and yes, becoming adults living in poverty. Remember, we know how to end poverty, and poverty is a policy choice. We know that investments made in children's earliest years have a much higher return than investments made later in life. It's why I'm obsessed with ending child poverty. It would improve almost every social determinant of health, including youth homelessness. It would reduce childhood trauma. It would reduce child endangerment, and it would help level the playing field for those in our communities who have historically been left behind. We can do this. Let's invest in our state's future and address the root cause of so many problems facing our state by truly addressing child poverty. Let's put money back in the hands of Oregon families to raise their kids. Let's give 55,000 of Oregon's most disadvantaged children a chance at a brighter future. Let's pass House Bill 3235 and create the Oregon Kids Credit. Thank you so much.